Hello, today I would like to talk about the differences in the explosion of infected people in France, England, and America. I think this video will be the most important video of all the videos I ever made so far. So if you are watching this video at this point in time, I think you're very lucky. I'm sure you have a very important job to do, huge effect in the world, so I hope you will use this wisdom correctly and effectively. Let's begin with France first. The number of new cases of the new coronavirus surged to nearly 208,000 people a day according to Reuters' recent news. The highest number ever recorded. Wow, it's so crazy. So I analyzed the prophecy of France. There are 4 factors contributing to the explosion of infected people in France, so I'll explain them one by one. First, the reason 1, Tenkokchichu. France's national day is July 14, 1789. The heaven-earth zodiac sign look like this. The major flow of each decade from this prophecy is as follows. This is called Koten. I told you about this before, the flow of luck that comes around later in life. For France, the distinctive features is that the year 2021 is just the beginning of the transition of the decade from Tsuchi no Saru to Hinoto Hitsuji. Therefore, this means that it will occur a tremendous change. Furthermore, the decade energy, Hinoto Hitsuji, and the left part of France's prophecy, Hinoto Hitsuji, reacts with the 2021 year energy, Kanoto Ushi, to create a Tenkokchichu, a huge destructive effect. But for those who are living their destiny, even if this energy comes around in their environment, nothing will happen to them. The only thing that will happen is that they will witness the destruction that is happening to the people around them, not on them. France has manifested itself in the phenomenon of breaking and destroying itself, which means that the heavens are pointing out that the way France has been going so far is completely wrong. The French prophecy is a special kind of prophecy because the energy is biased to only these 3 parts. It is called the future prophecy. It is a special type of prophecy that tries to produce results in the future using 3 ways. This means that if France wants to get results, it will have to work 3 times harder than other countries to get results. For example, other countries have achieved a reduction in the number of infections through one means, vaccines, and France tried to do the same, but turned out with no result. This is because they have just tried only one means. This is not limited to viral infections, but is inherently such a characteristic to any field. And at the same time, the part that represents the result for France is metal, and metal actually exists the center part of heaven. In other words, the result for France represents the people. This time, the fact that there has been such an explosion of infected people in the year before Tiger Year indicates that France's policies up to now have been fundamentally wrong, and the result is expressed a huge number of infected people, because people means the result for France. Now let's look at the reason 2, nudging phenomenon and reaching phenomenon. 2021 year energy Kanoto Ushi and the center energy of France Kanoto Hitsuji interact with each other and occur phenomenon called nudging. In case you are wondering, nudging is the energy that caused the Chernobyl nuclear accident. It is also the energy that caused Carlos Ghosn's life to become that way. I hope you can guess much better. Nudging means the end of the things, and this means a clean slate. This energy shows up on the center now for France, not past and not future, and reaching occurs the left part of France with the decade energy. Reaching means the same zodiac signs overlap, and this represents the start. This left part means future for France, at the same time the result for France. So reaching nudging phenomenon in each part means that everything France have done up to now must be terminated and the fundamental reform must be undertaken. Not such a surface approach like, if you don't have a vaccine, you are not a citizen. If you don't wear a mask, you will be penalized. These cannot be called policies at all. It must make more drastic reforms based on other countries' opinion or environmental situation because reaching occurs with the decade energy. The point is, be passive. Listen to other people's opinion. Don't make any proactive moves in this decade, starting from 2021. If France live passively, listen to people surrounding, France can achieve twice as much as France have in the past decade. This is the meaning of reaching energy in the future part with decades energy. Next, let's look at the reason 3, Tenchusatsu. France's prophecy and Macron's prophecy will enter a 2-year period of no-roof boundless energy in 2022 and 2023. Those who have been living their destiny will make great strides outside the box phenomenon in this Tenchusatsu period. Like a phenomenon, an athlete who has been unknown for the past 10 years suddenly becomes very successful and wins an Olympic gold medal. However, both President Macron and France have fallen into a situation where they don't have enough power to operate their destiny, which means that France will fall further into a crisis situation in the next 2 years. The key to getting through the next 2 years is to be passive, because every spontaneous action has backfired in Tenchusatsu period. To sum up, reason 1, 2, 3, various energies Tenkokuchi, Richin, Nachin, and Tenchusatsu are all telling to France over and over that be passive and listen to other people's opinion. If you keep doing this kind of selfish policy, the French people will completely collapse. This is all what this prophecy is trying to say. So, based on reason 1 to 3, the most important part, reason 4, President Macron's family background is projected directly onto the country. If we look at his prophecy, it is split into fire and water completely. The line on the right is exactly where the outward impact is, and where the result of what Mr. Macron has done will be. Since that the effect to people is the fire and Macron himself is the water, we can see that the current situation is that every time Macron comes up with some new policy, it occurs with the effect of putting out the fire of the people. However, a really interesting phenomenon occurs when the middle Mizunoe and the rightmost Hinoto cause the Kango phenomenon. This prophecy turns to be like this. It changes to the prophecy that the water grows wood and wood gives birth to fire. Fire means the effect to the national people. What Mr. Macron does will become a phenomenon of fire through the means of wood. This is quite ideal. Furthermore, the Kinoe, wood, which can show up only after Kango phenomenon, this is the guardian deity for France. So, if Mr. Macron could operate this Kango phenomenon in his prophecy, he literally will be the superhero for France, because his energy could protect France. The point is how to make this Kango phenomenon happen. The place in the upper right means the ancestors, fathers, and leaders. In other words, the most important aspect of this phenomenon is how Mr. Macron brings these people into his fold, how he listens to them, and how he interacts with them for the betterment of the society. In other words, his greatest weakness is his inability to respect the opinions of people in positions like his father. This causes him to have a narrow view, and because his energy is not to protect his country but to protect himself. So it can lead that France is experiencing the phenomenon putting out their own fire with Mr. Macron's water. As a result of the energy of Macron's disagreement, especially with his father, since small, being directly reflected into the country, and it just remains the relationship between fire and water without wood. I don't actually know how he grew up though, but I feel so sad, pity, and tearful for him, or rather from the energy of this prophecy. In other words, the fate of France has been screwed up because of the biggest problem in Macron's life, Macron's family, which is the projection of the fact that he does not get along with his parents, especially his father. In other words, I guess isn't this the kind of fundamental reform that France needs to make? It appears to be a warning that people from disadvantaged family backgrounds should be provided with a more generous environment and support so that they can receive a decent education, so that they do not end up on the streets, and that society should not send out people who will pay back to people in this way in the future. The result will be a country where young people respect their elders and ancestors, and their descendants will prosper. I think it's a little confusing, so I'll explain a little more. Look at his 5-element cycle. There is 6 crazy amount of water, which is the energy that represents Mr. Macron himself, right? This means that he insists on being the key And if we look at his relationship with his parents, his mother's energy is 0 and his father's energy is 3. In order for him to have a relationship with his father, there has to be a tree, but without the Kango phenomenon, there is no energy to connect him to his father. This suggests that there is a mental distance between him and his father. This means to create wood energy, he, Mr. Macron himself, has to change. This is the key to have connection. However, the fact that there are 3 energies means that his father has a strong influence on him to become the person he is now. He cannot utilize energies that are not in his prophecy. This means that his mother's energy is 0, which means that his mental energy is 0. In other words, this means that his interaction with his father is essential more than he thinks, and for him to get results. This is because the fire energy represents the father and at the same time represents his result and achievement. Furthermore, mental energy 0 means that an infinite need for the mother's love. However, since he has 0 mental energy, it means that he has little connection with his own mother. In other words, his wife, Brigitte Macron, is not his wife but the result of his continuous search for love from his mother. Brigitte Macron, she's a projection of his ideal mother. Besides, he doesn't have any ability to make vertical line connection. That's why he doesn't have child energy at all, 0. He doesn't have the ability to make progeny. Before I talked about it in this video, how to get pregnant. For women, baby energy is here, but for men, if he could have a baby or not is expressed here. And he is 0, so this means that his soul has no connection to the past and no connection to the future. Thus, he is unable to make vertical connections because he grew up with a constant lack of affection. The horizontal connection includes the internet, social networking sites that are currently developing, friends, lovers, something like that. As I have said before, he fundamentally lacks the perspective to create vertical line with his parents, grandparents, and ancestors. So more and more he tried to create new policies without listening to the opinions of those around them in order to assert that he is great. I am 6 water, I'm great, I'm here. So however, various energies explain that this idea is bankrupt. He had developed a thought process at an early age to find the value in his existence by extinguishing the smoky presence of his father's fire with his own water energy. Therefore, he unconsciously feels a sense of accomplishment in putting out the fire. However, since fire represents the success and the results for him, now that he is the president, fire means the effect to the national people. So a huge contradiction arises in that he wants to achieve results but can't. That is the current situation. I further researched the trend of suicides in France. The top suicides were committed by men between the age of 25 and 44, the young men with the most reproductive potential. The next largest group was men over the age of 75. This is where we see the same problem with Macron's house. The reason why the most productive age group commits suicide is because there is no vertical connection, and when they become old, they become the country's waste and have nowhere else to go but to commit suicide. Isn't that what these figures are saying? It's all a vicious circle. In France, they have introduced a partnership system where people form only horizontal ties and dissolve them as soon as they fall out or become inconvenient. In the end, a country that only understands horizontal connections in search of efficiency will lose the people who contribute the most to France. At the same time, a child born in relationship to the system will not understand the vertical connection well. They become what is called rootless. So that's the problem with dying at the most critical time of life without being able to activate their destiny. There have been more than 100 times when I have thought to myself, why do I have to live my life like this? To live or die now are not so much big deal. However, the reason why I came to think that I cannot die is because I discovered the meaning of my prophecy by myself. As I mentioned in my last travel video, it clearly says that my appearance was formed in this way because my paternal grandmother did good things for the world and was appreciated by people. My body was created out of people's gratitude to my grandmothers. If people are grateful to your grandparents, then the grandchild will be great appearance and brain. I used to think that my value was 0 until I learned to read this prophecy. Grandmother did something for which people thanked her from the bottom of their heart. Thank you. So I was really saved. So I wish your granddaughter's prosperity. And when she is lost, just God will help her. This is what my prophecy is saying. And this Mizunoto means a person above the crowds. So this means that only the people at the top of the social pyramid will understand the value of my existence. This is the reason why I don't make easy and quick money videos. And this is the reason now you're watching my YouTube. Okay, next is England. The reasons for record number of infections in England is mainly 2 reasons. First, the sacrifices made by decisions deviating from fate. Second, the sun fire energy has removed from fate and unbalanced the yin and 5 element system, which are in tune with the energy of the virus. So I'll explain the reason 1 first. As I explained earlier about the Tenchusatsu, the Queen's Tenchusatsu period is monkey year and rooster year. So 2016, 2017 were Tenchusatsu year. This phenomenon is derived from the fact that even if persons start out in the Tenchusatsu period with a desire for profit, it will not come to fruition. In England, actually the withdrawal process started in June 2016 when 52% of the population voted to leave the EU in a referendum and took 4.5 years from the referendum to complete. In other words, this is exactly the kind of action that will be weeded out later because of the desire for profit. I will give you as an example, Tom Cruise met Nicole Kidman in 1989 during his Tenchusatsu period and married her after a month of dating. Around 10 years later, they got divorced and they didn't have actually their own child. Drew Barrymore got married in 2001 during her Tenchusatsu period and divorced after only 5 months. And Kim Kardashian started dating Kanye West around April 2012 during Kanye West's Tenchusatsu period, and they got engaged in 2013. 2012 and 2013 were the Tenchusatsu period for Kanye West. Can you imagine what kind of energy Tenchusatsu with this kind of example? When person act in the pursuit of practical gain, the phenomenon of it not coming to fruition occurs. However, the actions started in the spirit of volunteerism for the benefit of others, and the world will be explosively appreciated. In other words, love from love, if person started these kind of things during this Tenchusatsu period. That also means that the purpose of marriage for the couples I mentioned earlier is mainly material acquisition and not true love. Tenchusatsu revealing it. So the actions that the British started during the Tenchusatsu period were only for their own personal gain, and the phenomenon of being shunned by the heavens is occurring right now. In addition to this, the influence of nudging plays a major role, which I just explained in France. In 2016, Hinoe monkey will have a nudging phenomenon with the energy of Queen Hinoe tiger. When you try to start something with the energy of the end nudging, there will be a sacrifice of somewhere or someone. I think the greatest sacrifice phenomenon is the death of Prince Philip. If it takes her life cycle as the life cycle of the country itself, then Hinoe represents Prince Philip. Especially this year with the disappearance of Hinoe due to the Kango phenomenon, this just literally means the son, Prince Philip, is gone. And the other sacrifice came back to the people in the form of being stuck in the middle of a viral outbreak. It is no longer enough to keep the economy running smoothly, right? On the contrary, it's so prevalent that the people cannot even afford to think about the economy. Finally, it was Queen Elizabeth who was to suffer the greatest sacrifice. She would feel like her children and grandchildren are somewhat unreliable, and now that Prince Philip has passed away, so she has only herself to rely on, making her last years very lonely. Actually, I checked Prince Philip's prophecy, then turned out that he has a Kinoe, which is the guardian deity for Queen Elizabeth. If you marry someone who has the energy of a guardian deity for you, and then your luck will operate twice as fast as they have proven. However, when the guardian deity disappears, it will drop drastically. So I think the queen is in a sad and painful situation that we cannot imagine. And I think perhaps it was one of the sacrifices phenomenon that Prince Harry got married and settled down with the women of the worst energy flow. Actually, they met in 2016, right? During the timing of Ten Justice and Nutting for the Queen, and have gone down a path that deviates from the flow of prosperity. If the person have been in the flow of prosperity before Nutting, he will be deviated from the flow of prosperity after Nutting. That's what exactly Prince Harry's life, isn't it? The same phenomenon occurred with Carlos Ghosn, do you remember? Though his case was the pattern he had Nutting in his prophecy itself. In other words, he was meant to be like that. Nutting creates energy 180 degrees in the opposite direction. So it means that it will settle down with a 180 degree opposite energy, which means that he will never ever come back. So regarding to the Prince Harry, the being that was loved by the people becomes the most hated and settled with hated energy forever, and never gain back the trust until he dies. But we don't need to afraid Nutting. I think a successful example is Cinderella. That phenomenon is truly the Nutting phenomenon, I always feel. Often sequels are written in which Cinderella is fighting a difficult situation after her marriage, but this does not happen after the Nutting phenomenon. She ended up her life with truly happily ever after. Next, the second reason, the sun fire energy has removed from fate and unbalanced the yin and five element system, which are in tune with the energy of the buyers. As I said about Prince Philip, GCI energy cannot have the Kango phenomenon with Queen's energy Hinoe. This is actually the only one energy which could provide the fire energy. Besides, this means the sun, so literally, England lost the sun this year because of this. The life cycle is biased toward water, earth, and gold. Then prophecy. I showed you Omicron's prophecy before, and I explained that the virus has a very strong water energy and no fire, right? The energy with a similar characteristic tends to stick together because they are comfortable with each other. It seems that the virus have become in tune with the England energy because of that. Also, basically, when the energy of fire and wood is gone, the country will be in turmoil. It has become exactly the low vibration energy, and it has become in tune with the energy of Omicron. To give a practical example, all the people involved in the production of Tom Cruise movie are powerful fire energies made of snake, sheep, tiger, and dog. So all of actors, actresses have these energies and they're making strong fire. So his films are very much fire energy in five elements. However, although things of the same nature can come together, it is not the same thing as stabilizing the five elements and making itself strong. So basically, sticking together with the same nature is not a very long-lasting relationship. I'm sorry to keep giving the example of Tom Cruise. I like his movie, by the way. But I think you understand better if you look at his past gossip. Like, for example, it burns quickly. Wow! Oh, love first sight. I love her. And disappear in a flash. And who are you? And again, find another girl. Wow! Love her first sight. I love her. the making movie, and a couple of months later, fire disappears in a flash, and who are you? I'm sorry, Doctor. So it's amazing the power of synchronization. So if you are in tune with good energy, you can create power that can break rocks or can make movie, and you can inspire people all over the world. But if you are in tune with bad energy, like in the UK, you can create unprecedented disasters. This reason I'm talking about is how to make the most of person's destiny and how to prevent the worst case scenario. So if person have already made a decision to deviate from the destiny, the worst choice like in the UK, unfortunately there is nothing it can do. We will continue to see broken phenomena everywhere in the UK, and it will continue for a long time, I guess. I'm sorry, I'm very disappointed because I wanted to go to the Royal Opera House and to see Marianela Nunez or Stephen McRae dance live stage. Somehow I don't see any chance of going to England in this lifetime. Sad. I'm going to talk about the US, but I don't think we are living in an age where decisions are made by majority vote anymore. I think it is a very old-fashioned and anachronistic way of doing things. Because a lot of people said yes. Now you're watching my YouTube, you guys are 1,000 times smarter than me and have no idea how you guys thinking about those vote system, but you are so far keep experiencing the situation like more than 50% of people say yes, but you feel absolutely no. Yeah, how are you managing this kind of situation? Actually, after you find out the reason why about America through my YouTube, then you would feel much more skeptical about the concept of high ratings are really reliable. So let's go to the reason for record number of infections in America finally. This is really interesting.